Well, the book endeavors to treat what I call the theory of the sublime, so not just the concept of the sublime or the notion of the sublime as it's mentioned here or there, but really the major theories of the sublime from the 1st century or 3rd century, depending on your perspective, Greek treatise attributed to someone named Longinus, and the reception of that treatise in early modern poetic theory. And, of course, later, its kind of reinvention in the philosophical discourse of the 18th century, primarily in Burke and Kant. So there's basically 3 major figures. That would be Longinus, who got the ball rolling, Burke, and Kant. Now, I also examined 2 what I call pivotal figures. Those would be Nicolas Boileau, who's a 17th century French literary critic and writer, and John Dennis, who's a kind of turn of the 17th century critic and writer as well. And I think that those 2 pivotal theories are really important for the way the sublime was interpreted in the 18th century. For me, the answer to the question, why the sublime? Why did the sublime become so important at this particular moment in time? Why early modern culture and Enlightenment culture, why did they need or perceive a need for the concept of sublimity? My answer is that this was, of course, a time of secularization. This was a time when people felt a loss of religion. And of course, the whole Enlightenment discourse, namely Kant's very famous 1784 text on what is enlightenment, about getting us away from religion, at least insofar as it was, about gaining autonomy from Rome, from the dictates of the Pope, from the Church, etc., and to realize this kind of, inner sense of religion that Martin Luther had instigated with the Protestant Revolution. So I see the sublime as figuring in that transition in a very intense way, namely as a way to a kind of both accommodate and preserve a sense of religious experience, right, that had been lost in maybe the more traditional realm of the church, and bring it in through the back door, as it were, through the aesthetic. Right? So the sublime effectively is what I call an analog of religious transcendence, and by that I mean that it's a kind of secularization of religious experience while preserving at the same time the structure of religious experience, namely transcendence. And transcendence I define in the book as this dual structure of being at once overwhelmed and exalted.